staff, consultants, participants. Okay, well, thank you, disembodied voice. I am now calling the Tuesday, April 16th, 2024 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District Board of Commissioners to order. The time is 7:02 p.m. Please note we're conducting a hybrid meeting, which allows staff and members of the public to attend this meeting via virtual teleconference. The hybrid meeting will be video recorded and posted on the district's website. Because we're video conferencing, we will follow a strict protocol for the benefit of the recording. I will indicate when commissioners, staff, presenters, and the public will provide comments. If you've called into the meeting and are not using a webcam, please state your name prior to providing your comment for the benefit of the recording. Please practice considerate video conferencing etiquette by muting your line when you're not speaking and limiting distractive behavior on camera. Vice President Sherlock is requesting to participate remotely due to just cause. We will first conduct a roll call of commissioners present in person, and then we will address Commissioner Sherlock's request to participate remotely. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct the commission roll call.
Okay. President Spreen.
Here.
Commissioner Basigi.
Here.
Commissioner McDonald.
Here.
Commissioner Tonka.
Here.
Commissioner Tyson.
Here.
And Commissioner Warren.
Here.
All right, and we have 6 commissioners present in person.
Thank you. As stated, Vice President Sherlock has requested to participate in this meeting remotely for just cause as authorized under AB 2449, which is Government Code Section 54953. Specifically, she has requested to participate remotely due to the caregiving needs of a grandchild that prevents her from attending in person. Remote participation for just cause is permitted because the board has met the requirements specified in AB 2449. Number 1, a quorum of commissioners is present in person, and 2, the meeting is properly set up for hybrid participation. Unlike a request to participate remotely for emergency circumstances, a request to participate remotely for just cause does not require a board vote for approval. The only requirements are that Vice President Sherlock give a general description of the relevant circumstances, which she has, and disclose if there are any individuals over the age of 18 present with her in person. Vice President Sherlock, could you please confirm there are no individuals over the age of 18 present with you in person?
I can confirm that there are no individuals over 18 with me in person.
District Clerk Vargas, please update the roll call to reflect Vice President Sherlock's participation.
Okay, and the record will show that Vice President Sherlock is present remotely for the meeting. So we're going to continue with the presenters, consultants, and staff roll call. Santa Clara County Fire Department Fire Chief Kirkhow.
Good evening, present.
Thank you. Municipal Resource Group Strategic Planning Consultant Scott is in the chambers. Community Education Risk Reduction Manager Gluhan. Emergency Services Manager Beebe.
Present.
Programs Planning and Grants Manager Woods. I see her.
Present.
There she is. Thank you. Technical Analyst / Project Manager Cronin. Okay. Operation Project Manager Russell.
Here.
Okay. General Analyst Georgie. Field Manager Harmon.
Here.
Technical Data Analyst Martinez. Community Outreach Events Coordinator Sachdeva, I'm sorry.
Okay, present.
Thank you. Finance Manager Moriali.
Present.
General Manager Logan.
Present.
And Deputy County Counsel Forbath.
Present.
Okay, presenters, consultants, and staff are accounted for.
Thank you very much, Clerk. We will now move on to item 2, Commission President remarks. I really don't have anything to say other than those of the public who are looking at the agenda and wondering about, we have a closed session this evening, which will be the end of the meeting. We've done that because this is a standard annual performance review for general manager discussion every year. And that way, everyone who's done the other topics can go home. It'll not be a long one for those who do want to stay to the bitter end. And that's it. We'll move on to item 3, public comment. Persons wishing to address the commission on any subject not on the agenda may do so now. Please note, however, the commission is not able to undertake extended discussion or action tonight on items not on the agenda. Items may be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on the next available agenda. District policy is to limit public testimony to 3 minutes per speaker unless the number of speakers requires the commission president to impose shorter time limits. Do we have any public comment on items not on the agenda?
I am not seeing any online or in person.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 4, agenda amendments and changes. Are there any comments from staff on this? Seeing none. Any commissioners like to make changes to the order of the agenda? Seeing none. Let's see. In that case, let's see. Since there are no proposed changes, we will move on to item 5, the consent calendar. Are there any comments from staff on these items? Seeing none, are there any questions from the commission on these items? Seeing none, I will now entertain a motion. Will the commissioner making the motion and the commissioner seconding the motion please state your names for the benefit of the recording?
Warren moves to approve the consent calendar as stated in the agenda.
Tyson seconds.
Thank you very much. The item is open for discussion. Is there any discussion from the commission? Seeing none, are there any public comments on this item?
No, I don't see any.
Great. In that case, we will now vote. District Clerk Vargas, please conduct a roll call.
Okay. President Spreen.
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, Joan, or County Council, can you correct me? Does Joan have to stay on camera while she's remote?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, Joan, you have to keep your pretty face up. Commissioner Rasici,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Right, and the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 6, the Fire Chief Report. Item 6A is the monthly Fire Chief Report for March 2024, and item 6B is the update for the Palo Alto Station 8. Fire Chief Kirkhaw, could you please provide these reports?
Good evening, President Spring, Commissioners, Vice President Sherlock. The report is fairly straightforward this month, so I'll keep it succinct. There were no incidents that we considered significant. If you go down to the next page. Yes, thank you. Call volume was a little bit lower than it has been typically. Again, we had some rain in March, but it did not adversely affect the call volume. The call type percentages is in alignment with what it typically is. We did have a couple of incidents on Highway 280 in which the mutual aid that you're seeing down at the bottom is just Palo Alto responding, as well as county fire units. Again, typically if we have some sort of rescue response, we'll have auto aid coming in from Palo Alto going southbound while our units go northbound until we find the incident. And one of the incidents, the incident was not found, in which we had a call in neither Palo Alto unit or county fire unit was able to find a source of the supposed, again, where the caller said that there was an incident, so we couldn't find the incident. And the other one, there was a vehicle accident in which Palo Alto got on scene and canceled county fire. Again, sometimes just coming southbound, they'll get to the incident faster than county fire resources will get going northbound and then turning it around at Pageville coming southbound. So that is really the bulk of the report for March. I'll pause here to take any questions from the commissioners.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none? Nope. Any public comments?
No, I'm not seeing any hands.
Seeing none.
So to move on to the next item, which is just a brief update regarding Palo Alto Station 8 staffing. Today, we had one of 3 company officer meetings. This is an opportunity for all of our company officers, our shift officers, to come and meet with the administrative staff and the operations chief. And this topic came up. We are ready to start staffing in July as per the contract. There is no modification from what we can see. Again, we had a board proclamation yesterday in terms of community wildfire preparedness, and we do anticipate, if this last storm that occurred over the weekend is the last bit of rain, that we've got a lot of vegetation in terms of grass throughout the district, and we will continue to work through both mitigation efforts and then staffing Station 8 collaboratively with Palo Alto. And I'll pause there to take any questions.
Great, thanks. Any comments, questions? Oh, yes, Mark.
It's actually for General Manager Logan. Station 8, if memory serves, the agreement is for 3 years that we signed with Palo Alto, or is it 4 years? So this is the 3rd year. So can we put it on the agenda to make sure that we revisit that contract in the, so that a year from now, we're not negotiating, that we're actually have another agreement in place for manning Station 8?
Sure. No, absolutely. Chief, did you want to speak to that too? Because it would be the three parties negotiating then on Fire Station
Correct.
8.
Will we be available and ready? And I'd have to go back. I'm sorry, I don't have it at the ready here, but I believe there was some 1-year extensions, but I might be confusing the contracts because we have so many. So we'll both General Manager Logan and I will make sure that we get this on the radar
Because contracts
well ahead of
drag
time.
on, and want to make
Yes.
sure next year we're in this position to continue this coverage. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Understood. Very astute.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other comments here? Any public comments on this?
I don't see any.
Great. Thank you so much, Fire Chief. We appreciate it. And moving on to item 7, the General Manager report. General Manager Logan will be providing this.
Yes, thank you, President Sprain, and welcome to the commission, to the Los Altos Hills team, and to the public. If you take a look at the cover slide, this depicts the San Antonio Hills Homeowners Association annual meeting. And at the meeting was present a couple of commissioners, Board President Sprain and Commissioner McDonald. And then also staff visited with residents, and we were able to visit with county representatives and the homeowners executive board. So it was a very good meeting. Next slide, please. Goes into a little more detail on the meeting with the homeowners association. Staff has continued this engagement opportunity by meeting with residents to further and understand their specific concerns and issues. And we've been meeting with them on weed abatement and various emergency preparedness items. So being out and about with the population and the residents has been really, really helpful. Next slide shows the town of Los Altos Hills El Monte Fire Station utility undergrounding. And basically the fire department and the district met with the town to review the design construction plans, and everything looked very good. We appreciated being brought into the loop on that. And then I asked Fryer and Loretta, engineering consulting firm Jeff Tarantino, to review the plans and make sure that there was no impact to the fire hydrants. And so that occurred, and happy to report there's no direct impacts to the Los Altos Hills County Fire District owned and maintained fire hydrants. And then next slide is a report to you on the LAHCFD Countywide Fire Service Review. And this is rather interesting because this study commenced in 2021. In 2022, the consultant was changed for the Countywide Fire Service Review. And it's just concluding now in April of 24 with the recommendations and the agencies who've responded to those recommendations. And so for the Los Altos Hills County Fire District, our response to the administrative recommendations is that we're compliant with those recommendations that were made, and that when it comes to sphere of influence and annexation outside of LAHCFD, we reported to LAHCFD that the district is coordinating its efforts with LAHCFD identified sphere of influence and annexation areas that pertain to the district with the County of Santa Clara Office of the County Executive. And we anticipate exploring these possibilities and the future analysts of the feasibility, complexities, and impact in coordinating with the county and with the entities involved to come up with some potential implementation and timelines. So that was the basis of our response, and that is attached to this document. And then the next slide, I thought it might be interesting to note that LAHCFD's next steps is to work with interested agencies to help facilitate any boundary changes or need to implement any of the recommendations. And that LAHCFD staff will keep the LAHCFD Commission informed on progress of these efforts, and LAHCFD will not take any further action on recommendations that have been rejected by affected agencies. So it's really the recommendations are at the agency's decision making at this point in time. So this was a fairly complex LAFCO report went on for a couple of years. A lot of letters and testimony was taken, and try to keep the commission up to date on that. So hopefully this will be one of my last reports on LAFCO. But with that, I'll entertain any questions, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the commission? That's a good summary. Thank you. Oh, Jim.
Yes.
I just wanted to.
Yep.
Pardon me. I just wanted to find out if, or actually be, explain to that if the threat of us having to be subsumed by some other agency or something else, somebody else subsumed by us, that's all gone away, right?
Yes, we received a good report out of LAFCO because they did not suggest or recommend any form of consolidation as they did for another fire district.
Right.
And so they saw no value at the time, and I'm kind of, this is paraphrasing what they said, but they saw no value in the district being absorbed by any other agency, that we were, very much doing a job that was helpful. So,
Okay, thank you.
but thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, that was in the report.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Any public comments or questions?
I'm not seeing any.
And, we have a burglar alarm on someone's car going on out in the parking lot. Okay, great. Let's see. In that case, I guess that's it for item 7. We'll move on to item 8 now, which is finance and IT. Item 8A is to receive a report on Sourcewell and to approve the participation agreement. Finance Manager Morale will be providing us a report on this.
Yes, President Sprain, Vice President Sherlock, and members of the commission, good evening. Both items 8A and 8B that are on the agenda tonight really have to deal with putting models in place that really advance us in terms of best practices and also get us in congruence with county practices as well. And at the same time, we want to leverage technology. But the first one is 8A, and it has to deal with Sourcewell. Next slide, please. So we are asking the commission tonight to confirm that we can move ahead in this direction. And also we're asking for the approval of our participation agreement with Sourcewell. And it's a government agency directed towards a cooperative purchasing program in particular. So tonight, the agreement before you that's in the staff report really is asking for participation between LAHCFD and Sourcewell. And what we're specifically asking for is, under this agreement, is access to their system. Tonight's action does not result in any particular purchase of any equipment of any type or any approval of any contract other than a participation agreement as well. And next slide, please. So who is Sourcewell? Sourcewell is a procurement service cooperative created by the Minnesota legislature as a local unit of government. It is governed by local elected municipal officials and school board members as well. Sourcewell in particular facilitates cooperative purchasing, and it's staffed by government employees. So it's government specific, and it's very in tune with the government needs in terms of procurement. And that's one of the reasons why we are interested in Sourcewell. And by the way, the county uses Sourcewell as well. And it's a nice combination of the models between us and the county. What is cooperative purchasing? It's a procurement conducted on our behalf of one or more public units. But in particular, the agreement before you tonight wants to take advantage of what is called piggybacking. And in particular, that is where one form of cooperative procurement occurs and another agency like the district can take advantage of it. And what it does is it streamlines the whole RFP bidding process for us as well. And so in particular, where we want to take advantage of what Sourcewell calls their government model, and their government model really refers to piggybacking, where we can refer on their pre-bid national and state-based contracts. So you may recall that in the fiscal year 23-24 budget, for the first time, the district put in the budget the purchase of district-owned vehicles. So up to this point, we have not purchased those vehicles because, quite honestly, we didn't know how to, because going through the county process and doing that individually through the county procurement is quite an involved process. And so Sourcewell came to mind. And in my discussions with the county, and in particular, Aaron has been wonderful help in both this and the CalCard as well, the next item. But when we looked at Sourcewell in particular, our staff is growing. We have procurement needs. We see additional procurement needs of this magnitude in the future. And we thought, let's take advantage of the operational efficiencies that Sourcewell can offer. In particular, we want to piggyback on contracts that they offer through their facility. And really one of the strongest arguments from my perspective, beyond being efficient, is that the county uses this, and they have used Sourcewell for quite a long time. And our county council is familiar with the Sourcewell model also. So what is the process? The main message I want to give the commission tonight is that we are not shortcutting any process internally in terms of our approvals, our review of contracts, our adherence to budget. All that still remains. But what we do have advantage of is a national list of bidding contracts that we can look at and see if they're appropriate. So in particular, if it is approved, the process will look something like this. We would first go to the general manager and ask for her approval to proceed. We definitely cannot move on any purchase unless it's approved within our budget allocations, which the commission approves at the end of the year and the county approves at the end of the year. We definitely, if we select a supplier contract, it definitely has to go through internal legal review. So that would be in conjunction with our legal counsel to make sure that those particular contracts are reviewed and are compliant. We will also coordinate with the county finance department, as we do right now, to make sure that they recognize the vendor that we're supplying with and they acknowledge that process internally. And lastly, those contracts would come before this commission. So all those processes remain, but where we do save a lot of time is that initial RFP and bid process, which really can take months to complete if we were to take it from the ground floor. If you look at the Sourcewell site and took this right from the web, this is what they say their steps of approval are. It's to register, which is the action that we're asking the commission to approve this evening, to go out and scan their site, find a contract, and then contact the supplier. And the previous slide, please. And contact the supplier. But there's much more for the district beyond that. Again, it goes through that entire process, which I just described. In terms of fiscal impact, it's actually astonishing. There are no fees. There's no charges. And that's because those vendors that participate in Sourcewell, they pay the costs for participating in that national and state PACE program. I will say, though, in my experience on these type of contracts, that we do save money internally because all the time we're not spending going through those RFPs. I've personally been through RFP programs with cities that typically will take 3 to 4 months and involve multiple staff members and advertising and et cetera and et cetera. So with that, with the next slide, please. We are really seeking approval from this commission to proceed with the participation agreement. And then upon execution of this, I know our first step in working with Ryan in particular is that we will engage Sourcewell for the purchase of these 2 vehicles and see how we fare in that process. And with that, I'm available. I know County Council's available, is very familiar with this as well, for any questions you might have.
Any questions from any commissioners?
No question. I just think this is a great way to leverage an existing program.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to add a quick comment. The concept of piggybacking, I don't know if all of the commission is familiar with it, but at least we have used it once in the past for our agreement with Vector and company, our auditing. So they were the auditor for South County Fire, and we were able to utilize that piggybacking to save time going through an RFP. So it is something that we have done in the past, but this will allow, I think, a more concise way of doing it.
Yes, great point, Corey. And I should mention that we didn't do this just for the trucks. If we have other material purchases of equipment, things of that nature, even services, we can scan that world of bids and look at them for appropriate application.
Commissioner Tyson?
Well, let me just speak up in support. As a former head of a procurement in a mid-sized company, this looks like a best practice and certainly an efficiency and process controls standpoint. So I very much approve.
Any other comments? Any public comments on this?
No, I'm not seeing any.
Great. I appreciate the report because you certainly laid out a lot of positives and no negatives. So it makes it a very easy one for us. Let's see.
So on this item, President Spreen, we do need commission approval.
Yes.
To participate.
Let's see. Can we get a motion then for, let's see, this item? I intend a motion to approve the participation agreement with Sourcewell. I need a
Warren moves to approve the request to proceed with the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program.
Sherlock
McDonald
seconds.
seconds.
Great. Thank you. Open for discussion. Is there any more discussion on it? I'm not expecting any. Any other public comments on this motion?
Not seeing any.
None. Let's vote.
All right, President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
and the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8B, the CalCard report and presentation, also from Finance Manager Moriali.
Yes, President Spreen, Vice President Sherlock, and the commissioners. Thank you for entertaining this item. Unlike 8A, this item is just informational. We're not asking for any action. We're not asking for any approval this evening, but we really seek your guidance to see that we're going in the right direction. Again, this initiative has to do with efficiency, county congruence, and quite honestly, I'm personally familiar with CalCard. I've used it at several locations in several cities. It's quite a pervasive program, and it really is very robust from a government standpoint. Next slide, please. So what is a procurement card? It simply is a credit card. It's a commercial type of credit card that's used in private organizations. It's also used in government organizations. And it's really to be applied to and given to full-time employees and or part-time employees for the purchase of small dollar equipment. And we're talking about small dollars, way outside of the scope of the previous item that we talked about, which are more material costs. It really eliminates the administrative burden of making small dollar operational purchases. It offers real-time purchasing mechanism to our staff. And also, this district currently has a credit card, procurement card program, but it is with Wells Fargo. I also wanted to portray to the commission that when we make purchases with the county, we really do it through a process where we communicate the expenditure, it's sent to the county for approval, and ultimately paid. There's really no medium below that for making direct purchases on a retail basis, except for Wells Fargo and potentially CalCard on a day-to-day basis. So when Victoria and Denise or Eugenia need to make a purchase, if you will, out in the field, especially in the case of a disaster or emergency, it's really only the credit card that gives us that ability. We have no other medium at this point in time. And currently, under the Wells Fargo program, we have 4 employees that have access to those cards. So why the change? We've used Wells Fargo for several years now, and we've found that it's a commercially driven program that's not really government focused. Also, Wells Fargo will not adhere to our credit limits that have been approved by this commission. They don't recognize us separate and apart from the county. And in that sense, they're not familiar with our sub-agency status. So we've only been able to procure a credit limit of $10,000 combined for all cards. So that's quite a small amount. And we've run into operational problems consistently because of that. The CalCard program does not have those limitations. They recognize the strength of our audit. They recognize our sub-agency status, and they're willing to look at our credit limits based upon that status as well. They also offer very robust programs that allows online reporting and, from my opinion, very strong internal controls. I've touched base with Scott, our audit partner with Vector, and he recognizes CalCard as the premier model of credit cards with agencies from his perspective as well. So the goal is really to accommodate small dollar purchasing needs, provide the ability to quickly validate credit limits, allow the staff, not only one finance person, to allow all staff to see their credit limits as the way they evolve during the month, and to track them at not only at the administrative levels, but at the staff levels as well. It's also very interesting. CalCard offers emergency cards to be used in the case of a disaster. We'll bring that more information to you at this next meeting, but it's a very novel program where if there's a disaster, and it doesn't have to be state declared or locally declared, but it is a significant event, the general manager, within the limits provided by the commission, can actually issue additional cards to address that particular disaster. And we'll bring that information to you also at the next meeting to explain what that disaster emergency card program is all about. And from my perspective, that's also very unique to CalCard. So what is CalCard? It's registered with the state of California. It's a procurement card used by the county of Santa Clara at this time as well. It's a Visa-backed program. So the CalCard program is backed by Visa and is essentially a Visa card. It provides a flexible payment mechanism for acquisition, again, of small dollars goods. And the cards are issued in the name of the cardholders. So it would be issued in the name of each employee. Each employee will have access to online systems. Each employee will track their expenses as well as centralized track their expenses. And what's also really attractive about the program insofar that they understand the government cycle of payments, they allow 45 days to pay beyond the billing month. Whereas currently, we end up paying, I think, within the first 10 to 15 days with Wells Fargo, and we have no decision as to when those amounts are withdrawn from the bank. So this allows us to fully track and fully reconcile and then make payment. So from my perspective in a finance arena, I've always found that as a very strong internal control. Next slide, please. So who is US Bank? So CalCard is backed by US Bank, and I'm sure you're familiar with US Bank. I think they're the 5th largest bank in the nation. But they've partnered with the state of California in providing this program. They also partnered with NASPO, which is the National Association of State Procurement Officials. So you can see that when US Bank partnered with the state in creating this program, it really all was government focused and adheres to national procurement standards as well. The next slide, please. So congruence is a strong argument in looking at the county. I spoke with CalCard, and the county obviously uses this in a robust manner, given their size, obviously. They have nearly $1.8 million per quarter of use with the CalCard program. So clearly it's been, I'm not sure how many years it's been in place, but I think it's been several years. And it's a definite part of their model. And what's nice is now us as a sub-agency, again, we're congruent with that particular practice. We have reviewed this with the county council, and they see no compliance concerns. They're still in the process of finalizing their review before the next meeting, but up to this point in time, they've indicated no initial concerns. Is that accurate, County Karen, from your standpoint?
Yes, very accurate.
Okay. And next page. So what's the intended design? Again, we're not looking for approval tonight, but just give you a preview of what the intended design would be. And we'd read these figures from left to right, going from top to bottom. We would really, with the help of the general manager, finance will define who the card holders would be. Right now, we're anticipating a use of 5 cards, one more than we additionally have. Dollar limits will be by card holder, they'll be by transaction, they'll be by agency, and they'll be by month. They'll be contained within all those parameters. CalCard offers a very interesting practice where we can exclude particular types of expenditures, particular type of merchant's codes. So for instance, what comes to mind, we wouldn't want anyone going to a casino. So they have different merchant codes where they can actually block use of any type of those merchants that we would not subscribe to. Dual expenditure reviews would be approved in this model. Again, the cardholder has real-time access to their transactions. There would be online digital receipt submittal, which is something which will really help our efficiency. Right now, we're pushing paper and sending receipts in paper form. This actually allows digital relay of receipts to Corey as she looks at them. There's cardholder monthly reconciliations. And again, if there's a disaster, we can actually increase the limit of the cards with commission approval, and or we can take advantage of emergency cards. So that's the intended design that we'll be speaking about at the next meeting if we get guidance to proceed. So with that, our next step also, as I looked at this CalCard model and also had some discussions with the General Manager Logan and Aaron, I think we also, between now and next meeting, need to look at our existing resolutions and policies and make sure they align with the CalCard model in particular. So in particular, we want to look at the existing credit card policy and look at it. But I think it does need to be updated and aligned with CalCard. We look at our procurement policy and also look at our general manager spending limit resolutions to make sure that all these three documents align with the model that we would be bringing forth to you to the 15th. So in essence, what I'm saying is that at the 15th meeting, it may well be, if we get your approval this evening, it may well be that you'll get the CalCard contract and also have these revised policies in front of you on the 15th as well to make sure it happens all at one time. We will also evaluate internal spending limits to evaluate the amounts per card holder. We'll bring the CalCard contract back to this commission and bring the policies and resolutions back in May. And with that, I think that's it. And we're just seeking your direction and or questions.
Great. Any questions? Please.
This also sounds like a best practice. I very much like the idea. In the town, we've had a lot of concerns about cybersecurity and its impact and how we protect against that. So when you bring this back next month or so, if you could just add something about the protections that are included there to prevent phishing and all the other cybersecurity tricks that we have heard of so far.
Yes, Commissioner Tyson, that's a great point. And I will try to reach out to CalCard to get access to their cybersecurity policies and practices that are in place and see if I can attach that as well as an informative. But that's a great point.
Well, you had me at, our auditor says it's best practice. It makes it pretty easy. Any public comments on this item?
No, I'm not seeing any.
Great. In that case, let's see, do you want, I think the consensus you've seen here is direction enough, or I've seen nothing stopping. I see a lot of nodding heads in the right direction. So I think proceeding till next month.
I think we're getting the nod to move ahead. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's see. Now moving on to item 9A, reports on emergency services, projects, programs, and events. This will be Emergency Services Manager Beebe providing reports.
Thank you, President Spreen. Good evening, commissioners, staff, and public. For tonight's report, we're going to start with an update on a workshop that General Analyst Georgie and I attended a few weeks ago, presented by the California Association of Public Information Officials on strategic communication plans pertaining to agency communications and public engagement. And I'm going to have General Analyst Georgie do that report. So the floor is yours. Next slide.
Thank you. In summary, we both found the workshop to be very beneficial. It was invigorating to be in a room filled with like-minded professionals who all spoke really passionately about helping their communities. At its conclusion, we both felt that we gained knowledge and tools to formalize our communication strategy at the district and craft specific, effective messaging with measurable impact. The lecture also included valuable strategies and tactics for not only engaging the public, but also gaining buy-in internally and from officials and allied agencies. This training was really timely as the outreach team has been working towards a more templated approach to our communications. Thanks to this workshop, we now have a framework in hand. The next step will be to document the path forward in our own strategic communications plan. We've initially identified 3 types of communications that the district provides: public-facing information, community outreach, and emergency communications before, during, and after a disaster. Our plan will provide a closer focus on identifying the most efficient ways to address these areas. Next slide, please. So as I've mentioned, we've already been working towards intentional communication that drives specific outcomes. This slide highlights the communication pieces that we've used to achieve this in the last month. Our first example at the top left is the Defensible Space Brush Chipping postcard. As you may know, the chipping by area restrictions were lifted from the brush chipping program, but the IHFR team observed that resident participation wasn't growing as expected. We worked with the team to revise the program postcard to reflect the new guidelines. As they measure resident participation in the program in the coming months, we'll soon be able to see if the new language helped eliminate the confusion that was holding residents back from using this program more often. We've also received some community feedback that residents feel they're not hearing about our program offerings, and so we've expanded our digital and print platforms to get the word out. For example, we have a full page in the Town Crier that not only highlights our programs, but also includes some of our top tips for instantly improving one's emergency preparedness. I'll give you a hint. It involves signing up for Alert SCC emergency alerts and knowing your evacuation zone. And of course, for those of you in our Firewise communities, you may be aware that the May 4th Wildfire Community Preparedness Day is coming up quickly. We've assisted Captain Gluin with the promotional flyer, social media designs, and yard signs that Firewise USA participants can proudly display. Next slide, please. Another tactic that we've deployed is using Linktree on our social media channels. Linktree lets you create a personalized collection of links that you can share with your audience, accessible from one single URL. Not everyone is going to visit our website to read our preparedness info, but a mobile-friendly list of emergency links could be helpful, especially when users are limited to only using their cell phones. We can quickly swap in links and alerts as needed for any situation or emergency, and we can track views and clicks to test if this approach is working. That concludes my update on the latest communication strategy and output. Back to you, Victoria.
Thank you, General Analyst Georgie, for that very informative report. We do hope to show you some more examples of some strategy and communications that we've been planning on implementing. Next slide. This last weekend was a little busy. We had the Los Altos Hills Youth Commission. They have their annual conference, and I was pleased to be able to come for the third time. We saw presentations on entrepreneurship, leadership and community, and advice on how to achieve your goals. My presentation focused on thinking outside the box, not taking no for an answer, finding mentors that help you navigate through roadblocks, and making sure to show appreciation to those that have helped you along the way. Senator Becker came, did his usual very motivational talk, and it's always impressive to see what some of these teens are doing, building new businesses and community groups based on events that they go through or gaps that they see in the community. So it's always a really exciting time, and I'm always honored to be there. Next slide, please. And then we had our Los Altos Hills Neighborhood Safety Dinner. This is our second annual, where we invite different neighborhood leaders among the community. So we had CERT, Firewise, and Neighborhood Watch. And then we also invited the Emergency Preparedness and Response Committee to come and be part of it as well. We had about 39 residents and staff there. As you can see, it was here in the council chambers. A little bit of an idea of the schedule of the night. Really great presentation from Teen CERT. We did our alert and warnings presentation that we had given out in February for those that couldn't make it. We did a small presentation, and Amita Sachdeva, our newest employee, did that presentation. She did a great job. Then we had the Los Altos Hills Amateur Radio Club, which is a new club here in town, do a short update on what they're working on. And then Captain Gluin from our fire district came and did a Firewise update to kind of round it out. Really interesting conversations that came up with some of the projects we're doing, evacuation routes, in some of the alert and warnings presentation. And Captain Gluin did a really great job of answering the public. And I think the they really liked being there and be able to have that interaction and be able to talk about some of the concerns they have in the community. The biggest concerns, as always, is wildfire evacuation, and also alert and warnings is a big thing for them. As you guys know, a lot of people are concerned about not getting those alerts and warnings. So that's one of the things that between the EPRC and the district that we do a lot of discussion on and some research on. So more things to follow on that. But that was a really great event for everybody. And again, we hope to have that as annual. It's also an appreciation to show our thanks to the neighborhood leaders in our area and a chance for them to network and get to know each other so that we can combine them in the future to really get into their neighborhoods and provide them that support to continue those community areas. So always a great time. And then I just want to give you a quick update on our CERT Back to Basics exercise. March 23rd seemed like a really long time ago. We got rained out. So we went inside our classroom. I actually really liked that because we had to pivot, and that's what happens, right? You can't always predict those things. So it was a pivot. We did have about 14 people there. President Spreen came and gave us some really good feedback on processes, got in there with the best of them. And we did a lot of documentation, flow review, kind of reviewed station roles, what you do when you come, when you're activated, things that we decided as lessons learned really need to really kind of fine tune our process with documentation. And that comes just with not doing it as much as we would like to. So I think we're going to kind of get a more realistic, simplified version of the documentation that exists now. And really it's incident reporting and gathering the damage assessment that the town needs to get from us. And then a yearly review of those processes really needs to be sort of a priority. We have new people coming in, people leaving, and new ideas. So next steps, last night they had a tabletop and they went through it again since we decided it was fresh in our minds. So I haven't heard of any updates from that, but happy to give that to you. Last night I didn't go to the tabletop because we have a new Teen Cert board. So in May, you'll be able to meet them. We have kids on our board now, again, from different high schools. We've got a Cupertino student now. We have a Harker student and a St. Francis student, and many of them are very interested in really pushing the program forward and very excited to be on board. And they all came from this last academy we had. So I'm really excited. We had our first parent come to our Teen Cert meeting. He came for his son who wants to be on the board, and he was I told him he didn't have to stay the whole time, but he thought it was great. So it was pretty interesting. But it was very cool to hear a parent's, he actually came to my CERT Academy 3 years ago, and he's a graduate, and his daughter graduated too. And he's got a lot of really good ideas and seems to be kind of want to be involved. So I might have him help me out a little bit, but it was a really great time. And so you'll be able to meet them next time. And that is the end of my report.
Well, that's great. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Always amazing to see what the Teen Certs are doing. I love seeing that. Let's see, any public comments or questions on that?
I'm not seeing any.
Thank you. In that case, we'll move on to item 9B, I believe, which is reports on the community education and risk reduction programs. Let's see, it's going to be a couple people giving this. Community education and risk reduction manager Gluen and operations project manager Russell providing this, I think.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and public. I'm going to update you on 2 items. To start, first of all, 4 staff members attended the WUI conference in Reno, Nevada from March 24th to 28th. And we all wish to thank you for supporting this opportunity, both for networking, but also professional development. It was invaluable, cutting edge information, because not only did we go, but 4 of our partners at the Fire Safe Council also went. Amanda Brannard Cannon, Barbara Gonzalez, Seth Chalet, and Zaid Ortiz all attended. So we got to talk and take classes with them, as well as 2 Santa Clara County Fire Department employees, Chelsea Young and Battalion Chief Skylar Thornton. So it was just a great opportunity. We started the conference off, the 4 of us, by taking 2 2-day in-depth classes. Project manager Cronin and I attended the NFPA HIZ assessments class, which we came away with the ability to be able to provide those assessments and just provide a little more bench depth for the HIZ program. Community Education and Risk Reduction Manager Gluhan and Programs Planning and Grants Manager Woods attended the Community Wildfire Mitigation Best Practices class, also a 2-day class, very in-depth. And we all came away feeling like this was such a great opportunity to learn what the latest best practices are, and as I said, the networking opportunities. So I hope to provide a few highlights from the conference. For one, the professional development, as I mentioned, to have more newly trained NFPA HIZ assessors. Project Manager Cronin and I can now conduct assessments should the Fire Safe Council be unable to meet that demand. So work with our partners to be able to serve the public. Networking. So networking among one another, but also networking with all the really interesting vendors that were there, specifically Fireside. Captain Cronin really enjoyed a conversation with the Chipper Day contractor and explained a situation that we have, a challenge that we have with our vendors being able to read comments from the public. So he's working with the vendor to create a Spanish translation for those public comments. Eugenia really enjoyed meeting Earth Foundries and she was thinking specifically for I-280. Their mission is to make forest health affordable by turning forest waste into carbon negative products and energy biochar. So basically what that is they use the what am I looking for? The fuels that basically for soil enhancement, filtration, advanced carbon materials for use in bioplastics. So, and more importantly, they've been working in the East Bay, so they understand the local air boards for burning permits and air quality control. So she was very excited about that. Let's see, latest best practices. One of the roundtables that Denise Gluhan and Eugenia attended was one about really collaborating with our residents, tribes, local experts, and other stakeholders, and making sure that we're including them when we are designing our projects. And we've actually seen that very much so with I-280 recently, and our public, the public meeting that we had recently, very, very successful in bringing in the public's opinions and concerns and so forth. And then, not surprisingly, insurance trends across the Western US was a huge topic. I personally really enjoyed listening to one presentation, a fire chief from Moraga Arenda, really trying to work hard to understand where the insurance companies are coming from, what their criteria are, and then trying to convince or make the process very clear. For example, Firewise or HIZ assessments, make that clear so that we're all speaking the same language. A huge heavy lift, but nice to see that there are people out there really working on this. And I think my takeaway was the more that this affects more people, it's going to affect everybody across the board, leaders, poor, wealthy, everyone. So the more that affects, the more people are going to really get involved in finding solutions to that. So that concludes my report on our experience at the WUI conference. Any questions? Right. Next slide, please. And I'm going to provide, oh, go ahead.
I just want to add one thing, and I'm sorry I didn't give this to you earlier, but you reminded me of it. One of the opportunities that Denise and I had in our pre-conference class on collaboration was to take one of our projects and put together a presentation. First, we used the community strategic fuel break as the exercise in our mitigation, assessment, and then we were able to present it to the rest of the seminar. And so our community strategic fuel break was able to be vetted and inquired and discussed with a classroom of 50 people who all do this for a living from different states, different counties. And it was just really a great opportunity to see that project be inquired about and get additional ideas and feedbacks from people who've been, there was hundreds of years worth of experience in this room. And so I feel like that was a really fortunate opportunity, and my apologies, I didn't think of it to give to you for your slides.
I'm glad that you actually said it, because I think speaking from your own experience is actually much more effective. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Excellent. So I will move on to the next slide, please, Corey, and I will provide an update on the HIZ and assessment and rebate program. Great. So we're looking at, if you can go to the next slide, Corey. Thank you. By the numbers, we're just looking at March 9th through April 15th. Once again, a little bit of a slower pace right now, given the weather. 1 HIZ assessment was scheduled, 3 HIZ assessments were conducted. So far 13 rebates processed since April 2023 for $33,250, and there are a number that are being processed, that are in the process. So I'll report those out next month when those are officially processed. And next slide. That's it, actually. Any questions on HIZ? Oh, great. Thank you. I will pass the baton to Denise Gluhand.
Okay, I think, yep, I see the color now. Good evening, everyone, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. I'm going to want to thank Paige especially for that update and the conference. One of the things too that I brought home from the conference, again, as she's talking about that, is they stress the fact that it's not just home ignition zone, but it's structure ignition zone. So that's taking into account all buildings that are on properties need to have some defensible space designed around them, you know, because they become an ignition source if they catch on fire for the house. So it's not just the home, but other structures. So you might see that kind of integration coming in the future. But to get to my specific topics, first, I'll talk about, if you want to go to the next slide, Firewise. Again, this is an update what we currently have. I have not a lot of change, but I have 2 of the applications that we should get a response back any day. A couple have been returned a couple of times, and we worked through those issues. One is a first-time submission, so maybe we'll get lucky and get a first time. It seems like it takes about 3 times before an application actually makes it through CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE is the designate from the NFPA to do the application approvals. That's designated to the state fire entity, which happens to be CAL FIRE in California. So we also did a little change just today. If you look on the map for Natoma, LAH E007, we're adding LAH E008. There's approximately 61 homes in 8, and it's a little bit small for participation's sake. So because of geographical relationship, that is going to be one zone. So if you look at something very interesting, this came out of the Neighborhood Watch safety meeting that was on Sunday night. One of the residents that's a Neighborhood Watch leader, her district actually goes under 280 also. So La Barranca, both sides of 280. So the question was, you know, I can't have everybody into just the one Firewise zone. And I said, no, the people on the east side will go over to Fremont Hills. The people on the west side will go to Natoma. And the nice thing is that we had that right there available. So we could just integrate in a group of people that have a network and an organization in place and say, this is what we have available to you for Firewise. So that was really nice because we had Fremont Hills almost in their process completed and Natoma just starting kind of in the middle of their process. Next slide. Let's go one more, didn't change. And again, this is just to remind everybody, these are areas that we can take that 8, this is since it happened since I turned this in, that 8 will now be turning not yellow, but these are areas, I know with some of the recent discussions around 280, we'd still like to, you know, press the area of E003, which is the LITA code area. That would be an area as we talk, about vegetation and things, that would be an area with the I-280 to really work on getting some Firewise in there. Next slide. This is what I call the central recruiting area. And again, you can see what regions those are. They're, it's getting a little bit smaller as we go on, but those are some of the street names. If you notice any of those, let me know. I did have some interest out in we can go to the next slide, in the zone 16. So I have somebody that might be getting that area started. So if you happen to live down in the E016 area, reach out to me, let me know. I'll give you the contact information for the person that's trying to get that organized. All right, so that's it for Firewise. On the map side, I just want to give you the opportunity as a commission and staff to join us on Saturday, May 4th here at the town hall. Again, we're having, this is in conjunction with the NFPA's program. It's actually sponsored for the last year by State Farm, the National Wildfire Preparedness Day activities. This will be their last year. They're going to review their grant program that they do. But it's 10 years that this will be the 10th year that this has been going on. And we're jumping in this year with a Firewise Educational Day. Basically, you can attend the required session, which will be around a very general around Firewise, and then all of the topics like insurance, defensible space. But then we also have breakout sessions that you can go to that one main session and then hit a breakout session and get a little bit deeper dive into some of those specific sessions. So when people get online to sign up, the registration is at the bottom there. They're asked to choose one session, and then they are also asked to choose a lunch option. So if you go online, make sure you choose a lunch. And then we also, up in that top right-hand corner, we're on the map for the National Preparedness Day activities. So that's us showing up on the map. And then just the history of the Wildfire Preparedness Day. I have some flyers in the back. You can invite anybody that you'd like. I have this in the back for you. So if there's somebody you think might be interested as a commissioner, you can invite them. You can use that flyer if you'd like to take a copy. And then I have a couple of other speaking things coming up. Oh, I didn't have my office hours on these slides, I don't think. Is that the last slide? Oh, no, I did have my office hours. Okay. So this is what I've been doing on speaking engagements. Hidden Villa, I did an in-person meeting for introducing Firewise. I'm going to be doing an evacuation meeting here in June. We ended up with 36 attendees altogether. So it was a good turnout. It was a hybrid with 6 people being remote. And then as Victoria mentioned earlier, the safety dinner happened last night. I have a defensible space presentation that is from the preparedness guide that they put together on the 27th. It's here at Town Hall from 10 to 12. I'm also, if you happen to belong to the Rotary, be speaking on May 2nd, a shortened version of Be Ready, Be Prepared. And then the office hours has been very well attended this month. I had 8 people on my Wednesday and 10 people, which was the 10 people were all in the Saddle Mountain Firewise area. So it's the I-280 questions. Those attendees were there also. So we had a good hour-long discussion of programs and different opportunities that are available through the district and some clarification around some details. So very beneficial. And I think that's everything I have. Oh, no, I don't. I forgot about the goats. Those cute little faces. So just in case you don't know, GOAT program has been going on for this year will be our 18th year. It started back in 2006. And again, it's to reduce vegetation and create a fire break in the burn preserve open space. They utilize electric fencing, shepherding dogs or herding dogs and shepherds as their containment. And then they move that around. As soon as the goats eat enough vegetation, they move to a new fresh area that hasn't been grazed yet. Basically, we call this prescriptive grazing because there is a plan to it. And there's some of the benefits that you can see, especially that they can eat anything. It's also, when we talk about, environmental impacts, we're not using chainsaws or fossil fuel powered equipment. Their tentative date for arrival this year is around May 15th because of all the late rains, which is about a week later than usual. So I think that's the last slide. Let's look. It is. All right. So if there's any questions on either Firewise or any of the upcoming events or goats.
Any comments, questions on anything? I tell you, I'm struck by just from all these reports, the number of touch points we have with the community and the residents. It's just wonderful and complex. And if residents don't manage to find us, they must be hiding under rocks. So thank you for all of that. All right, moving on to, oh yes, please, Jim.
Yeah, sorry about that. I attended one of these all-day meetings or 4-hour meetings about 2 years ago, and there was a very comprehensive session on insurance problems and how to address the problems. Is there a chance that we could replicate that? And because there's a lot of questions throughout the hills about people being either being at the risk of losing their insurance or afraid of being, or being by word of mouth, they're getting significant amount of concern and fear about what's going to happen in the insurance policies. So is there a chance that we could get some kind of a guest speaker or somebody to come in?
Yeah, on the May 4th, there's actually 2 opportunities. Joel Lesher is from the United Policyholders.
Oh, okay.
So he's coming. He'll be there with a resource table also.
Okay.
I have some new flyers also that they provided. It's a nonprofit. So
Okay.
he was in the insurance industry for like 30 years, and now he works for this nonprofit. And then from that, I'm hoping to do something in conjunction with the Commissioner Lara's office and maybe also Joel. I'm going to see how it's received. I'm going to ask him to take down a lot of the questions that people are specifically asking so that we can kind of design what the questions for Los Altos Hills specifically are. I can, talk to, in my presentation, I'll be talking a little bit to the problem in general, but he'll be a little bit more specific. What do you do when you're dropped by insurance? That's kind of more his focus.
Precisely.
So that people have action steps. Or if they have a pending, like a State Farm next year, when should they start looking for new insurance and how does that work? Because you can actually get a prepayment penalty if you pay your insurance off. If you stop your policy too soon, they can actually charge you for the months left. So a lot of people that are getting this non-renewal, but they have to wait until about the last 60 days before they get new insurance if they don't waive that fee. So there's little things like that he gives that insight on. And then, yes, we can do something in the future.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Please.
Oh, just thanks for the heads up on the May 2nd. I'm going to try to attend that Rotary meeting and be a little friendly face, one more friendly face in the crowd.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item, this is 9C, reports on programs, plannings, and grants. This will be Programs, Planning, and Grants Manager Woods providing us a report.
Good evening, everyone. Next slide, please. So I'll start this report with a little recap of the resident concerns that were brought forth. Many of you have heard all of this or part of this, but residents in the area of the Page Mill off-ramp had concerns about a great deal of debris and slash that had been left there by Caltrans activities to get that ramp open. But at the time, we didn't know that that was the cause of what had been stacked roadside. And it was stacked as tall as a person. So there was a great deal of vegetation left there. And conversations originated around, is this part of our I-280 project? Is it part of our upcoming Arastadero maintenance project? How could the district support, getting all of that handled, who was responsible for it, et cetera. So there was about 25 people on a email conversation that went on for, probably 4 or 5 days. And then we started to add some structure to how we would get this situation resolved. So if we go to the next slide. So here's a picture of the concerns of all the vegetation that was left there. And you can see if you would drive past this, the why it definitely alerts you to a wildfire possibility. It's right next to the roadway, cigarettes, chains, hot car, that type of thing, right into the dead vegetation. Next slide. So the steps, we just applied our network and our project design steps to the same process, like a mini project, if you will. The first step, of course, is to figure out who the landowner is. And we do this with all of our projects and all of our agencies. It just happens to be kind of behind the scenes. So half a day's worth of research, we did mapping and things like that. And it turns out this is the Caltrans easement completely. So, the next thing to do was to inform everyone. We invited them to attend the community webinar that was already set up for Elena Fremont, which Ryan is the project lead for. And then we tacked on to the second half of that, invited everybody to come, and we went through these steps that you see here to inform them the policies, what it takes to put together a project, and also who in our network we could reach out to bring resolution. The solution became, let's get a hold of Caltrans. So luckily in this situation, once we found the responsible agency, it was fairly simple. My contact over there that I work with on a monthly basis gave us the information right away to have they call it a customer service request. It's like a reporting tool. So even during the meeting, the residents were going on and reporting into the tool to raise the priority of that inspection to see what was over there. And then of course D4, our direct contact with them, got right on it. So the field supervisor has already gone out and looked and said, yep, this is part of the cleanup. We left the roadside debris because we had to get the ramps open during the storm when the trees had come down, and we're scheduled to come back and pick up the debris. So next slide. And this was just an opportunity to illustrate and show the folks that came up with this concern, the types of things that we do in the area. So the green again is the resident submission of what the area of concern was. The pink parcels running north to south in the lower part of the screen, we go back one, is part of our page mill. And then east to west in the upper part of the screen is Arastadero. So we can see the connectivity that we've brought there between our 2 evacuation routes and now handling the page mill off ramp. And then the large portion through the center, you can see that's I-280, that's our future project. So it was a great opportunity to resolve a problem at the local level with the networking that happens here, and then show our residents how the connectivity moves out of the neighborhood up to the evacuation routes all the way up to our I-280 project. And now we have the next slide. And this was the resolution. D4 responded right away. We were just uniquely positioned to move from local to regional agencies. And I also, excuse me, took the opportunity to show folks the different prescription treatments. We do one type of prescription treatment, other agencies do other types. So it just shows all the planning that goes into behind it, and organizing who's allowed to do what types of treatment prescriptions on what portions of the land. And I believe that is the end of my report, and now we will move on to our project managers.
Great, thank you very much. Let's see, this will be moving on to, I guess, item 9D, which is the first one will be Black Mountain Prisma Evacuation Route Project. That'll be Harmon here.
Hi, good afternoon. So for the Black Mountain Prisma project update, the project was completed as of March 20th. The project length was 3 days, and we had 1 day of quality control where we went back and just made sure we did the final touches, made sure everything was pretty. I'm happy to announce there was no reportable incidents. The project was completed in a safe and efficient manner. We removed about 120 cubic yards. You can see the stats up there for yourself. 120 cubic yards of vegetation removed. That's approximately 6 full dump trucks, which is pretty good for a 2.1 mile stretch. So let's see. Also, in addition to the numbers there, if you notice, I'm kind of forming my MO here. I'm providing you with some pictures, some before and afters. So if you look at the first set on the left, Set number one, that's providing you with an example of what we mean when we say we're raising up the trees and creating that distance between the ground vegetation and the tree canopy. If you look at the second set on the right, you may notice, why are we out there cutting grass? Well, because the dry season comes and all of that grass you see there will become flashy fuels. So the grass is going to grow back pretty quickly, but we went ahead and took care of it while we were there to go ahead and trim it down. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that or any comments about that? Okay, and now the Elena Fremont evacuation route project, which is going to be Ryan.
Okay, commissioners, President Spreen. These evacuation routes are becoming very mechanical, I guess. We're procedural, and that's great. The Elena Fremont evacuation route is on schedule and going well. The community meeting, which was for my project, as you heard, did expand. It was pretty well attended for my project. We've been able to take that meeting and create 2 videos from it. So one will be kind of a generic video about evacuation routes, their purpose, how they work. And so that'll be on our YouTube channel pretty soon. And then, as you heard, the meeting continued then with specific citizen concerns for the I-280 off-ramp, and that too will be the second video. And I believe that one is currently up on our YouTube channel. Okay, the rest was targeted properties, looking for those. I was out door knocking for a couple of days. I was able to get right of entry permits for all of the targeted properties that we're concerned with. We have received others as well. Presently, we have 13 that we've received. More will be trickling in. But the important one is it's such a residential area that most of the properties will not need us to have an ROE to do extensive work. But on the corners, on the areas where there's fire hydrants, those that did need a little bit more touch, I have secured the right of entry permits for those targeted properties. The project starts on Monday, the 29th. It's in process. If you wish, I'll have an extra hard hat and a vest. Come on out and tour the project. Any questions?
Any questions? No.
Thank you very much.
You say these are mechanical, but I don't take any of these for granted. There's so much that goes, so many steps into each one of these. Each one that comes off, I think, is a miracle. So I really love it. Thank you. Armin?
All right, good afternoon again. So for the Paloma project update, we're currently 7 weeks out from the project start, which is set to start on Monday, June 3rd. The permits are currently in progress. We're waiting on the Caltrans permit, and once we receive that, I believe we will have all the permits to move forward with the project. The community outreach has begun. Postcards were mailed out as of last week on Friday, so residents should be receiving those throughout the week this week. To be followed up by the cover letter and ROE packets, which will be mailed out this coming Friday. Residents, so those of you members of the community out there, be on the lookout for those in your mailbox, and please feel free to fill them out and send them back. The sandwich boards are going to be placed out on the project this coming week, so you might see those as you're riding through. And the community webinar is set to take place on Tuesday, March 14th. That'll be the Tuesday before our next commission meeting, so feel free to attend that. And the project, aside from those items, those are big ticket items for you guys with the community outreach, but the project is currently on track. If you have any questions, let me know. That concludes my report. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Any comments on this? Really appreciate it. Any public comments available on there for anything? Just want to make sure.
No, I'm not seeing any.
Thank you so much. All right, let's see. In that case, we're moving on to item 10 now, which is personnel. General Manager Logan, if you will please present this item.
Yes, thank you, President Spreen. And when I conclude this item, I would like to give an update for a question I was asked previously. But on this item, this is item 10A, is the proposed first agreement to the Operations Project Manager Employment Agreement, which is included in the agenda package. California Government Code Section 54953C3 requires the Commission to orally report a summary of the proposed compensation before taking final action to adopt the compensation, hereby improving the employment agreement. The proposed First Amendment at the at-will part-time Operations Project Manager Employment Agreement adjusts compensation to $83.50 per hour for an amount not to exceed $88,176 on an annual basis effective May 1st, 2024, with no additional changes. The position does not receive vacation, medical benefits, or retirement benefits. I recommend approval of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager Logan. Any clarifying questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion and a second.
CG moves for approval.
Second, Tonka.
Thank you. Any comment, any more discussion? Any public comments?
No, I
Seeing
see none.
none, let's vote.
Okay, President Spreen,
Yes.
Vice President Sherlock,
Yes.
Commissioner Basiji,
Yes.
Commissioner McDonald,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
Right, and the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item 11.
Excuse me, I had one other
Oh,
comment.
yes, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Please.
it's okay. The question was raised earlier about the agreement for Fire Station 8 in Palo Alto. I did look up that agreement while we were in the meeting tonight and found that it was signed and effective the first year, December of 2021, with 4 more years additional after December of 2021. So we're in good safe harbor, as we would say, to continue on, but we will put that on our list and agenda because we don't want to lose this momentum and opportunity of protecting that corridor of Fire Station 8. So,
Great.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the real-time analysis.
Sure.
Moving on to item 11, commission member reports. This is an opportunity for commissioners to provide reports or any future agenda topics. Any comments from the commission? Seeing none. Any public comments on this? Seeing none, we can go to 11B. This is notice that the next regular commission meeting will be scheduled for May 21st, 2024, in person and hybrid at this location, the Los Altos Hills Town Hall Chambers. Let's see, any additional comments from the commission on that date and location? Seeing none. Any public comment on that? Great. In that case, we will move on to item 12, which is a closed session. The commission will now adjourn to closed session to consider the general manager employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54857. Before we join that closed session, is there any public comment on this item?
I'm not seeing any.
Seeing none, thank you. The commissioners, Consultant Scott and Deputy County Counsel Forbath will now adjourn to the closed session in the far back room. Vice President Sherlock, you should have received a separate email from Consultant Scott with instructions for joining us in that closed session. Upon completion of the closed session, we will return to open session and announce any reportable action, then adjourn the meeting. Members of the public and other attendees, you are welcome to remain on this call during the closed session if you like. District Clerk Vargas, please note that for the record, the time is 8:23 p.m. Emergency Manager Services BB, Management Services BB. Thank you, disembodied voice. All right, we will now move on to item 13, reconvening to open session. District Clerk Vargas, please note for the record, the time is 8:40 p.m. Please conduct the roll call.
All right, President Spreen,
Here.
Vice President Sherlock,
Here.
Commissioner Basiji,
Here.
Commissioner McDonald,
Here.
Commissioner Tonka,
Yeah.
Commissioner Tyson,
Here.
Commissioner Warren.
Here.
Okay, and we have 7 commissioners present.
Thank you, District Clerk Vargas. Deputy County Counsel Forbath, could you please announce any reportable actions from the closed session?
No reportable actions were taken in closed session.
Thank you, sir. We will now move on to item 14, adjournment. This concludes the April 16th, 2024 regular meeting of the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. The meeting is adjourned at 8:41 p.m. ESM BB, please stop the recording.